Okay, this is my market update for Friday, May 8th. Markets remain trading in a tight range actually since the beginning of 2015. We traded below last week's range briefly on Wednesday after comments from Janet Yellen in a speech. She said that she thought that valuations in the stock market were quite high. We bounced back today on the quote-unquote Goldilocks jobs numbers, had a significant rally. Everything was working today, so we'll have to see what happens in the next week. Things are starting to look a lot more positive compared to last week, but it still remains to be seen whether or not we can break out of this range. And until we do, I think it's better to play it safe. And speaking of playing it safe, I got out of my WestJet trade. I scaled out of the position, so I got out half of the position on Monday ahead of the earnings report. I sold that for 3.5% gain, and then I sold the other piece the day after the earnings report, after we started to trade below my entry. I entered at around 27.12, so overall the trade only resulted in a 1% win. And it's hard to tell directionally where this is going to go over the next few weeks, so I decided just to get out of the position. We did make a higher high. Stock popped off the earnings report, but then traded a lot lower throughout the course of the day. I think in a sense they were probably a little bit unlucky, because the day they reported, oil was up pretty big, up around more than 2.5%. So probably had a negative effect on the stock. And on Thursday we traded at way below the 27 level, which was acting as support for past several weeks. But then by the end of the day, stock made a fairly strong recovery. However, there was no follow through today on Friday. Okay, so I got out of my utilities XLU ETF trade this week as well. I pretty much got out where I entered, so around the $43.50 level. So basically break even. My rationale for getting out of the trade is because we started to trade below that the trend line in blue. So I'm pretty much going to be assuming going forward that this stock will resume its downtrend. Only positive thing from the trade was that was able to capture one of the quarterly dividends. So overall, the trade resulted in around a little over 1% win. Okay, now I just want to go through, basically do a follow-up for some of the trades that I got out of last week. So if you recall from my last video, I got out of Baidu for a small 1.5% loss around the, between the $201, $202 level. So you can see this week the stock had a breakdown, but fell way below the trading range it had established over the prior several weeks. And if I hadn't have stopped out, it would have, potentially resulted in a much larger loss during this week. You can see at its worst, the stock traded below 190, so it would have turned a small 1.5 loss into a much larger 7 to 8% loss. And I believe this stock is probably going to be in a downtrend for the next several weeks. Finally, another position I got out of around 2.5 weeks ago. So I got out of international paper. I took a 2.5% loss here. Got out around at the $53.50 level. You can see over the course of the past 2.5 weeks, it has, traded way below that zone. The basically the $54 level where it's had established a range. And earlier in the week, stock declined quite a bit, almost 5% after the IRS came out and said that they had proposed a new tax rule for packaging companies, and basically they wouldn't be able to separate their containerboard operations into tax-advantaged vehicles. So you can follow me on Twitter at DeconstructMad, where I post entries and exits for all the trades discussed in these videos, as well as new ideas as they develop. In closing, I just want to say the markets are up not even 3% year to date. Been range bound for quite some time. So I think it's best to still remain cautious. Make sure that you limit your losses and stick to your trading or investing plan. And I think personally, since we're clearly not in a strongly uptrending market, I'm probably going to do shorter duration trades and risk a little bit more to try to take more advantage of some of the choppiness we've been seeing.